Hello class. For this semester my research project, it was done on paired readings and the use of both fiction and nonfiction together within a subject theme, and to help boost student engagement and background knowledge. And background knowledge is just absolutely crucial. So with background knowledge, you always want to assess what the students do know, but then as a teacher understand that there is not only diversity but relevance in background knowledge. So in diversity, just say for instance, just in general conversation, if a student from Utah moves down here to the coast and it's mid-February, you're talking about, hey, where you gonna go get a good spot out there on the neutral ground for the Mardi Gras parade? This kid's not going to know anything about what you're talking about. He's thinking, wait, a neutral ground, what is this, you know, for on the parade route? What? Well, I mean, Google told me about a route to drive down here with mom, and a Mardi Gras parade? Like what is this? So you have to understand that there's going to be diversity. You know, this same student could better understand a story about, say, hiking through canyons and whatnot, you know. I mean, there's Bryce Canyon over there. He's going to have a better understanding, say, of desert life and mountain life and whatnot. And so you have to understand that and build off of that, and I'll get to that later in just a minute. You also have to be aware of the relevance of someone's background knowledge. An example I used was, if you're speaking about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, and little Johnny over there in the corner is talking about his grandpa who works on the railroad system for CSX and brought him out there to the train yard and let him climb on the conductor's engine, and you got to clear up that really quick. And that leads me into the fact that there are misconceptions on background knowledge too, and with using fiction nonfiction together, I think a teacher is able to more quickly identify those misconceptions and then clear them up and begin to build on the knowledge that they do have and let that knowledge grow. So with that being said, I want to read a really quick little news article. It's a news article I went ahead and wrote up, but it's, you know, on it's a true story that happened a couple years back, and I'm going to just read it and then we'll have a little discussion. Today marks the first meeting between Breeze and Culpepper since both signed with new teams this offseason. This will be a true comparison of the two, seeing how both teams have yet to have a 100-yard rusher this year. Interesting also to see the fans' reaction to the Dolphins coach returning to this area. Hopefully he doesn't change his play calling, as today we will see which team made the best off-season choice. Now, my sports buffs and people who have a background knowledge already on this subject fully understood what I'm talking about, and not only comprehended this piece better with their background knowledge, but they learned more from it. My other people who may listen to that and say, I mean, I know the name Breeze, you know, you may have comprehended it perfectly, but you've not taken as much out of it because of your lack of previous background knowledge. And that's what we're going to build with paired readings. So and this is called an absorption rate. And someone that understands this, they know that, oh, the Miami Dolphins chose Dante Culpepper over Drew Brees. The Dolphins have Nick Saban, the old LSU coach. This is his first time coming to New Orleans, the Superdome, since winning the championship with LSU. You know, Breeze is coming, he was injured. You know, he's coming off shoulder surgery. Dante Culpepper, by all means, seems like the better pick, but today's going to be a good comparison. Neither team had a 100-yard rusher. So, you know that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Anyone who knows football knew that, and now they're able to grow on it. And so that what the absorption rate does, you absorbed more out of this having a deeper background knowledge. And then the next time you read another article, you're going to learn more than the other person reading this article, and that gap is going to continue to grow. And that's what we want to narrow that gap, and we're going to do that with paired readings, fiction and nonfiction. So how does this work? First and foremost, it motivates and engages students more. You're giving them a purpose to read more accurately, and they're going to develop a lot more strategies doing this. They're going to develop better reference skills. They're going to problem solve and think critically, and their vocabulary acquisition is going to be much better, because they're going to make connections not only across subject lines, but also they're going to have context-specific vocabulary in both fiction and nonfiction, which is going to boost their understanding. And then they're also going to be able to take those words from, say, science and apply them to math, and from their ELA lesson and apply that to history, and vice versa. And so, how does it work? We want to know, I want to mention first that the Common Core they are stressing more use of nonfiction. And remember, writing, reading, speaking, it's not just going to be trapped into an English reading classroom. We need to work on this across the board in every subject, and those subject area teachers can do the same and use some of these paired readings within their class to help reinforce those lessons from the English class. So it works both ways, and I always think it works better when teachers can communicate and build great lessons like that as well. So let me get in first. I want to mention that the nonfiction to fiction. So the example I use, nonfiction is going to offer a more in-depth look at a subject. If you're in a science class and you're reading about, say, rainforest and gorilla habitat, you're going to gain a lot from it. But then let's say that this is your textbook, and it's structured and it has all your captions, all your illustrations, and you're reading facts and you're regurgitating facts, and you can refer back to that and find all the answers to fill in the questions at the end of the chapter. But let's take a fictional book. Let's take the Newbery Award-winning Ivan the Great, and let's read that. And this story tells of a gorilla who's locked in a small cage at a strip mall for people to come and just ooh and ah over him. And if you're using that at the same time that you're teaching about gorilla habitat in the rainforest, what's a student going to do? They're going to make connect. They're immediately going to be interested in the fictional book, and then they're going to take the information out of here and say, wait, gorillas, I'm learning over here in my science class about their environment and their habitat. He's not supposed to be locked up in this cage. This isn't right. And then they're learning this across context, and they're using the fiction, nonfiction together to better understand not only their science subject, but all the information learned about habitat and rainforest and what a gorilla needs. They're taking that information, they're applying it to their fiction book now, to where they're better understanding the fictional reading. So it works hand in hand. You're building background knowledge for both fiction and nonfiction, and together that grows, and that's going to narrow that gap of that absorption rate. For their next reading, they're going to have more knowledge to draw from in both areas, in both their structured textbooks of the nonfiction and fictional readings that they may pick up and read for enjoyment, or that they might come across later on in their English class. And so it works both ways. Let's say the fiction to nonfiction. So a fiction book is going to offer students the chance to make a more personal connection, say, with the subject. We're reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham, and you're reading it, and these kids are, goodness, I can't believe this. But let's say, are you going to read that first and then introduce a lesson on civil rights and segregation from the past? Or let's say we start in history class and we start talking about the civil rights movement, and kids nowadays, they're sitting there like, oh my God, like they have such a hard time wrapping their mind around this concept. And then they read this book about a family that moves from Flint, Michigan down to Birmingham during the civil rights era. There's kids in the family who are their age that they can relate to and connect to. They have older siblings that a lot of your students may have that they're going to be able to connect to. And so instantly you just boosted engagement and interest in your history lesson by simply attaching a fiction lesson story to it. And by making that personal connection, they're going to better understand what's happening in the history class. And again, it works vice versa. In the history class, having made that personal connection with the fiction book, they're going to better understand the wrongs that happened throughout the civil rights movement, and because they just read the story of what happened to a real family that this happened to in their fiction story. So those are a couple of great examples. I want to mention like Magic School Bus. This is always a hit, but they do this exactly right in every one of their books and their videos as well. They have a wonderful cast of characters, and they always have these great stories. But what's the backbone of their story? A science lesson. Every time they're teaching you facts with all of that. So that's pretty much my research paper in a nutshell. It's a soapbox I can jump on for hours and hours. I hope you all were able to pull something from it. I really encourage everyone to, whether you're teaching a class all on your own, or if you have team teaching, or even on a higher level with the adolescents where students may rotate around, work together as a teacher team and really work on these paired readings. If you are teaching, you know, rainforest gorilla habitat, encourage the English teacher to read that fictional book, you know, the Ivan the Great, and connect the two, because you're going to see growth in both subject areas when you're able to do that. So I want to just finish up. You know, students, they're growing their knowledge with these paired readings. They're learning more about these selected topics, but the thing that's the greatest is that when they're comprehending more and they're appreciating more of their readings, they're reading on their own, they're reading more enthusiastically, and they're reading for enjoyment. And I think that truly is the ultimate goal, that it just speaks volumes, and it goes far beyond any spreadsheet or numbers that you can see on a data sheet. So it's been a great semester, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Have a great school year to come.